So UFC 314 Alexander Volkanovski versus Diego Lopez just took place yesterday, and in today's video I have the top takeaways from the event. So if you're new here and you don't know what the takeaways are, basically if you missed the event, I give you the top maybe 5 to 10 or so takeaways so you can leave this video kind of understanding what happened in the event in case you missed it. And just a quick PSA, I am pretty sick, so if you see more edits and cuts from this video, I'm sorry. Do have me a nice cup of tea here to keep myself a little bit, I guess, in the weather, not under the weather, but in the weather. I don't know what the reference will even be for that. So, but yeah, let's get into these takeaways. Our first takeaway, as always, is the overall card recap. I give the card a nice little grade and just tell you if it was a good card or a bad card. Now, when it comes to the UFC 314, amazing card. It's probably the best card of the year so far, in my opinion. This card felt like we actually had some fights deliver, a lot of finishes, a lot of fun fights. Just overall, this felt like a complete pay-per-view. There's been pay-per-views in the past where they've had, I guess, some name value or little to no name value, and the fights just didn't deliver. This actually felt like a pay-per-view that was worth your money, that you should probably buy. Just with the name value alone, it sells you on that. And with the main card and how the overall card just went, this is a card that I urge you, if you did miss it, to go back and rewatch some fights. I can only do so much justice to how good this card was. It's just me in front of a camera talking to you guys on a screen that you're watching probably on your phone or on your computer. I'm telling you, you're going to get 10 times more value from actually going back and rewatching the fights. But to give this card a nice little grade, to put a nice bow on top of this first takeaway, I would have to give it a nice solid, probably 9.2 out of 10. I mean, there wasn't really any bad fights at all on this card. We had some amazing finishes, one punch KO knockouts, some wars, a good scrap in the main event as well with Volk and Lopez. I don't really see how you could get this card lower than a 9. I mean, it has to be one of the better cards. I mean, maybe, you know, the Jandaroba versus Yan Xiaonan fight was the biggest sleeper on the card, but you know, that's 1 fight out of 13 that we had tonight or yesterday. Now, is it a perfect card? I can't give it a perfect rating because I think that has to be something that is, you know, once ever in a lifetime. I think a perfect 10 out of 10 will probably never exist. And if it does exist, I don't think it would ever happen again if I do give a card a 10 out of 10. So a nice 9.2. I guess the first fight on the prelims and the Yan Xiaonan Jandaroba fight kind of is what made it a little bit stinky. Sean Woodson versus Danny Ige one did end in a finish, but then that was kind of weird, but not the most entertaining fight before that, but still a good scrap nonetheless. So, I mean, every fight delivered. So 9.2 out of 10, great card. But let's move on from that and let's get into our nice second takeaway, which will be the main event. Diego Lopez versus Alexander Volkanovski. Now, I predicted Lopez. If you watched my little prediction live stream, I basically said that I think Volk will be looking good, like normal Volk. I think overall he's more technical. I think he's more skilled on the feet than Lopez. And I think he will be winning the first 2 rounds and then eventually get KO'd. Or maybe I said the first round. I don't exactly remember. But I thought we would see Volk do well with the low kicks, just jab off Lopez's face. And eventually Lopez finds a nice shot. I said uppercut. Now, I might get into that later, but Lopez did land a nice, nasty uppercut that kind of rocked Volk for a second, and I thought I was God. I thought I understood the plot. I knew everything that happens in this world. But Volk, man, he's back. Volk's back. That's just the whole narrative of this fight. He's just back, and his chin suddenly is good. I don't understand how this works. MMA doesn't make any sense. We see Volk get put out by Taporia. We see him get put out by Islam. We see Lopez pretty much hurt other fighters that have better chins than Volk. I think Brian Ortega has a better chin than Volk. And for Lopez to really badly hurt Ortega, which I don't think we've ever seen Ortega that hurt in a fight before, it screamed to me that this should make sense. We should see Lopez, if he does land on Volk's chin, he should put him down and put him out. Now, Volk doesn't have a good chin. I don't think Volk has ever had a good chin in his career, but his recovery has been on point. And I thought since he's aging and since he's off 2 KO losses back to back, that maybe his recovery is kind of cooked. But in this matchup versus Lopez, man, it wasn't cooked. it just wasn't cooked. He got rocked in the second round with a nice right hand from Lopez, and he took it well. He got dropped, obviously, pretty badly, but he took it very well and got back up and kept scrapping. This fight was a scrap from Volk. In the first round, he went out there and pretty much laid the Volk special on top of Lopez, man. It was easy work for him. Jabs, good combinations. He hurt Lopez on several occasions. Lopez's chin, by the way, is fucking insane. He has an amazing chin. I mean, he ate clean. I mean, Lopez ate clean. I mean, flush hooks from Volk that Volk wasn't actually just like, putting it out there just to land. Volk was trying to KO Lopez. He was trying to actually hurt him and put him away. And Lopez ate him, man. So what I come away from this is that Lopez's chin is immaculate, and Volk's chin or Volk's recovery has definitely improved, or definitely has gone back to what it used to be, the status quo before he fought Lopez. But just getting to the rounds of this fight, man, I had Volk up 4-1, 3-2 at worst. Maybe you could give Lopez the fourth round, I believe, because I think at one point he hurt Volk with that uppercut, and Volk was scratching out his eye for a little bit and was running away. But even in that moment where Volk seemed hurt, he was still throwing back at Lopez, man. He was still, rocking him, or still, throwing combinations with him while hurt. But the first round, I gave the Volk pretty clear. Volk outlanded him at least by 12 or 13 significant strikes. Took him down at one point, hurt him at one point with a punch. I think it's pretty clear night and day that Volk gets round one. Now, round two, Volk was winning the majority of the round, but he did get dropped. At one moment, it seemed like Volk hurt Lopez, but I don't think he really did. He more so knocked him off balance. And I think with the way Lopez dropped Volk, he was like actually out of it. And you saw him go back to the corner saying, "What was that?" I think Volk mentioned that to his coaches. I know at least he mentioned something to his coaches along the lines of like, "What did he hit me with? I didn't know what he hit me with." So round two, I think it just goes to Lopez based on the knockdown, and it was close to a fight-ending sequence. Round three, I think is clear as day Volk. Round four, I think that's where Volk had the little eye incident. I think that Lopez broke his orbital in that round, had a nice uppercut. But still, like, Volk was still kind of outlanding him. And even while Volk was hurt and on the retreat, he was still firing back at Lopez, landing clean as well. You can possibly argue that round four to Lopez, but I still think it just goes to Volk by just a little bit. I think that moment just wasn't enough for Lopez to get the round back to himself. I mean, overall, like, Volk was just doing more work with the jab, the punches. Lopez couldn't find his shots. He was out of range the majority of the time. It just was a Volk masterclass. And then round five, which was a fun round, by the way, Volk was still winning, doing his normal thing, clinching with Lopez from here and there, landing his jab, his money, his hooks, his combinations going inside were very effective. His low kicks weren't really there that fight. I don't think either fighter did much with the low kicks. Volk had a few in like the first beginning rounds. Lopez did a couple, but then he kind of stopped doing it as the fight went on. But in the fifth round, Lopez, I think, realizes he was down. Volk was still doing nasty work with the jab. Starts screaming at Volk, going in. And people were kind of saying in this, I saw on Twitter a little bit, people were saying that, Volk is running away. I'm sorry, but this entire fight, Volk was scrapping with Lopez. I'm sorry. If he runs away the last 10 seconds when he's up 4-1, I can't really be too mad about that. I mean, honestly, for the majority of this fight, Volk gave us a scrap between them. He was going out at Lopez, landing good shots. He was fighting. He wasn't running away the entire fight, just going tit for tat, landing low kicks and running away, doing like a nice Adesanya versus Vittori, or Adesanya versus Cannonier kind of beat. No, he was actually fighting Lopez. So for him to not, fully grit down and go blow for blow with Lopez in the last 10 seconds, I think is calling him, saying he's running away or calling him a bitch for that, I think is stupid. But I still think Volk closes out the fifth round. Lopez still didn't do enough for me. He was trying, man, just like he couldn't really find his way or find his range at all versus Volk. The only time he would ever have any success versus Volk was whenever he would get him in the middle of the octagon and go for a 1-1-2, a nice double jab to it straight. And he knocked him down with it, but he didn't do it often enough. It just seemed like Volk's hooks and his footwork were just too much for Lopez to catch him clean when they were on the inside. There was a few combinations and a few exchanges where, Volk was in the pocket with Lopez, which is where I was like, okay, this is where Volk gets chinned. But Volk was just too fast. His hooks were a lot more tighter than Lopez's. And Lopez, I hate when fighters throw the two and they kind of like wing the arm like this. I don't really like that at all. I think very few fighters actually have enough power built up in that punch when they throw it like that. And it seems like they miss quite consistently. So Volk wins 4-1 in my opinion. Maybe you can give it 3-2 to Volk still. I think it's clear Volk win. And I'm happy for Volk, man. I've always been a Volk fan. I've enjoyed Volk in his last few runs, or his big run against Islam, and then obviously everything went downhill. So I've always been supportive of Volk. But I'm not happy with the result, and this is why I'm not happy. Now, let me clarify first. I'm happy that Volk won. I'm a Volk fan, and I'm glad for his story and his narrative that he won. However, when it comes to the overall outlook of the featherweight division, this is where I get a little bit of, doubt, or a little bit of, in me. Because now with Volk as champion, it kind of feels like Volk, him losing to Topuria, makes the champion seem a little bit lesser. Like he isn't the true champion. Topuria really is the overarching, like, the big bang, the big villain in the featherweight division. But he's gone now, so that kind of already stains the champion in Volk. So he already feels like a number 2 champion. And secondly, Volk has already beaten the majority of the top 5 at featherweight right now. He's beaten Lopez, who's in the top 5. He's beaten Holloway 3 times in the top 5. He's beaten Yair in the top 5. He's beaten Brian Ortega, who's number 6 right now, who will be number 5 once Topuria officially is off the UFC website. So now I'm thinking, if Volk beats Evloev, which is a good chance he does, I don't know if I will pick him to beat Evloev, but if he does beat him, then what do we do next for Volk? Like, what happens? Is he retire? And then we're back in the whole situation again with Topuria leaving? Like, the division seems like it's in a really bad state with Volk winning. Lopez would at least have some fresh matchups. That Yair fight for a title would have been amazing. But even with Lopez losing, that matchup's still on the table, by the way. Unless, I guess, was it Sean Shelby who promised Yair a title shot if he beat Pitbull? No. You're on a 2-fight losing streak. You just beat Pitbull, who's coming in, making his UFC debut. Title shot? No, we're not doing that. So they're definitely going to do Lopez versus Jair in Guadalajara on a fight night. No way they're going to do it in a pay-per-view, whatever. But getting back to my main point, I think featherweight right now is at a very big logjam, and it kind of sucks. But overall, happy for Volk. Lopez would have been a cool champion though. But Volk wins. I'm happy with that. But we shall move on to our third takeaway, which is Paddy the Baddy versus Michael Chandler. Now, I picked Paddy Pimblett to win. I'll reiterate some points that I mentioned in my prediction video. Dude, I think Chandler is one of the most overrated fighters in the UFC. I don't think he was really ever that good. Even when he debuted against Dan Hooker and he beat him by KO. I didn't find him to be amazing. Obviously, versus Oliveira, he had his moments, but Chandler has always had his moments. But he's never, who is he ever, truly finished that was a good fighter? Like, he couldn't finish Gaethje, couldn't finish Poirier, couldn't finish Oliveira twice. I mean, Chandler has hurt a lot of fighters in his career so far in the UFC, but he's never actually put him away besides Tony Ferguson and Dan Hooker. So when I was gauging this matchup between him and Paddy, I was like, yeah, Chandler might hurt him, but I don't think he'll put him away. Chandler has consistently fumbled finishes and had low IQ in all of his fights for the most part. And something I noticed about Chandler is after the first 2.5, 3 minutes of a fight in the first round, he typically loses all sense of brain cells and IQ and just defense. Once Chandler starts to breathe a little bit heavy, he just kind of loses any sort of, I guess, finishing ability, or just overall, I don't know, his defense just gets very, very sloppy. I thought Paddy would take advantage of that, and he kind of did. But yeah, Paddy just dominated, man. Paddy just straight up just made Chandler look like dog shit. And I know the whole narrative around Paddy is that, he looks so terrible on the feet. His hands are always down. Chandler might chin him with his big power. No, Paddy just put on an absolute masterclass versus Chandler. His low kicks, his front kicks to the body were money. I mean, Chandler just had nothing for Paddy whatsoever. He tried to step through, right? The big Chandler signature move is when he goes for a punch, steps through, and goes for a hook. That's his big money move that he does. And every single time Chandler did that, we just saw Paddy Pimblett put a nice front kick to his body to stop him from stepping through. It was just a very good game plan from Paddy, and then he just out-grappled him. And that's the thing about Chandler, man. He just, once the fight continues to go on, it seems like he just loses all sense of good defense, whether it's on the ground or on the feet. And once Paddy cracked him with that knee in the third round, had his whole face split open, he was bleeding everywhere. He got him down again, and then just battered him on the ground. Chandler pretty much had nothing. He couldn't do anything. His whole face was covered in blood, and Paddy's on top of him, who's a huge lightweight, by the way. Paddy Pimblett is thicker than Chandler while being like 4 inches taller than him. He is a massive lightweight. You would think Chandler would be smaller, but a lot more thicker than him. No, he was smaller through and through the whole way through with Patty. So having Patty on top of you, pause, who is this much larger than you when you're already kind of gassing out in Chandler and your face is all busted up and you're bleeding everywhere, dude, it's just too easy. I think there was too much blood for a submission for Patty, and then after that, he just pretty much just beat him down, got into full mount position, and just beat the ever-living crap out of Chandler, and then that was that. I mean, full dismantle, full domination from Patty. He's looking good. He is the lightweight DDP. I said it in my live stream. He legit is the lightweight DDP. He looks goofy on the feet, but he's sneaky good. Just sneaky good, and he lands good low kicks. He's very technical. Doesn't look like it. You know, when he's throwing his hooks, man, it gets a little bit worrisome with his chin being up in the air, but, you know, he deals with it well. He knows how to keep his range very well, and then he just takes people down and submits them or just beats them up on the ground like he did against Chandler. Chandler's cooked. He's done. No more McGregor callouts, please. Just no more. But, yeah, Patty the Batty, maybe he could be, you know, top 5. Like, I can see him beating some guys now. Like, maybe he does beat a Poirier. Maybe he takes down a Poirier. Maybe he grapples up a Poirier and submits him. Poirier has been known to not be the best on the ground when it comes to submission defense. Typically, he leaves his neck up in the air for a rear naked choke. Maybe Patty takes him down and submits him. But I'm not fully saying that Patty doesn't beat a Poirier. Like, I think he's a solid chance to do that. And maybe if that fight does happen, I might pick Patty. But yeah, Pimlet looking good as ever. Great win, great performance, easy dub for him. We move on to our nice good old weekly prospect report. Now, if you don't know what this is, basically every single week I take the best prospects and I put them in a spreadsheet and I give them a grade based on their last 3 fights. If they've had more than 3 fights, you can see in the very far right in the change category, you can see if their grade moved up or down depending on how their most recent fight went. I do have a whole video where I do break down the whole process behind the prospect report. It is pretty simple. As you can see, I'm just taking their fights, giving them a grade, and averaging them out. But if you don't understand anything, or if you get a little bit confused, go ahead and find that video, link in the description down below. Click that video, watch that, and it helps you understand a little bit. But on the very top, we have the 4 prospects who I picked out from this event, from UFC 314, Gene Silva, Marco Tulio, Chase Hooper, Sean Woodson. Time to say goodbye to Gene Silva, man. It's tough. It's tough, man. If you don't know as well, if you hit the rankings, then you are no longer a prospect, in my opinion. You're now a contender, and you will no longer ever again in your career qualify for the prospect report. And so since Gene Silva did beat Bryce Mitchell, he no longer will ever qualify for the prospect report again. However, I will not leave him alone. I will not just sit here and let Gene Silva go off into the distance on the wayside. He will still be mentioned. So what I decided to do was to create a best prospects section. So below the first section, you see best prospects, and it has Gene Silva and RDR. This is reserved for the guys who kind of naturally flowed into the top 15. So they will be etched in history as, you know, some of the prospects who went on to do great things and get into the rankings early in their UFC career. And Gene Silva easily qualifies for that. He'll be our #1 prospect probably for a very long time, maybe till the end of time, because he had such a great run to get to the top 5, or the rankings at lightweight or featherweight, And yeah, he just has been amazing. And we'll talk about his fight versus Bryce Mitchell. He aura farmed him, man. Now, Bryce Mitchell was doing pretty well in the first round. I won't lie. I kind of had him up in the first round with Bryce Mitchell. I thought he was doing a lot more with the low kicks, just doing more damage, staying more busy. Gene Silva did have a nice spinning wheel kick towards the end of the round and like a guillotine attempt. That was it, though. That was all for Gene Silva. He didn't really land too much on Bryce Mitchell outside of the wheel kick and the guillotine. So I gave Bryce Mitchell with the side kicks to the body, with the low kicks. I thought he was doing more work. So I gave Bryce Mitchell the first round. However, in that first round, it was pretty clear and evident that the body language of Bryce Mitchell was just not good. It just wasn't good, man. And you could sense the KO happening. Gene Silva was aura farming. He was smiling, talking to the crowd, pointing at people, talking shit to Bryce Mitchell. It was becoming like, you could just see it on Bryce Mitchell's face. Like, he was locked in while, you know, Gene Silva was sitting there just kind of trolling him the entire time. Second round comes out, and then Bryce Mitchell just can't get a fucking takedown. He's cooked. He's trying his best. He's visibly gassing at this point. And yeah, I mean, he goes for a takedown, and then we see good old Gene Silva get a nice ninja choke on him, locks it in, rolls him over, gets him on the ground, and chokes him unconscious. It's just you could see it happening from a mile away. You knew the finish was going to happen at some point. It just was a matter of time, man. Bryce Mitchell, it sucks because I wanted this fight to be a lot closer than what it was. I wanted it to be like an absolute war back and forth where maybe, whoever wins, wins. I didn't care who won this fight. I picked Gene Silva to win. But if Bryce Mitchell won, I think it would have been good for his career as well. I think he would have been a bigger name from this. But obviously, Gene Silva, with his reputation right now and how he's winning fights, it just is. Maybe he does better from this win than Bryce Mitchell does. But just an overall, just good performance. He aura farmed him. It's GG's. It's a wrap. Gene Silva is that next contender. I think he's the only thing that's probably saving featherweight right now. I think you have Evloev. If Evloev ends up losing to Volk, then you have Gene Silva or bust. It's cooked. Like, you need Gene Silva to go out there and win his next fight and possibly get a title shot. I say give him, I think I said Arnold Allen, maybe. I don't think Allen's booked right now, but I think he needs some sort of top 10 opponent. He can't be fighting anybody below him in the rankings or just like one spot above him. I think Bryce Mitchell was at number 13, so he'll take that spot, obviously. I think that we need to see Gene Silva get a nice jump up the rankings for his next fight, because if something does go wrong with Evloev, Volk, and Volk wins, then that means that there's no more contenders for Volk to fight at featherweight because he's beaten everybody at featherweight already. So it has to be Gene Silva versus Allen. The winner of that probably gets a title shot versus Volk if he beats Evloev. So, yeah, that's my whole take with that one. Moving on. Marco Tullia had a great performance as well against good old Tresean Gore. Gave him a 90 for this fight only because he did get hurt in that first round. But other than that, he put a whooping on Tresean Gore. Sorry. Felt like everything he was landing was hurting Tresean Gore for the most part. Just put on a nice masterclass. It looked very technical. It looked very very, I wouldn't say skilled, like obviously very skilled, but he looked very kind of like, fighting nerds-ish. I don't know, it's very hard to explain, but he looked like a very like composed, good fighter in there. Like, he looked like he was actually like something who could be something in the future. He looked very, very well. So Marco Tulio, honestly, only 2 fights in the UFC so far. Ivo Peteria, Tresean Gore, looked good in both. Probably has potential to be something in the future. We'll see what he does in his next fight, but obviously, maybe a guy you want to look out for in the future. Chase Hooper was also on this card, and Chase Hooper beat Jim Miller. Good win. He just pretty much out-grappled Jim Miller for 3 rounds. For the most part, we saw some weird moments when it came to the scrambling with Chase Hooper. There were several times in this fight where he had Jim Miller in the so-called truck position. It looks like a calf slicer, but it's not really a calf. It's a very weird position that I had no clue about. But Chase Hooper was pretty much utilizing that position in the second and third round quite consistently. But overall, he just kind of controlled Jim Miller for the whole fight for the most part, on the back several times. He went for a twister at one point, couldn't get it. I mean, Jim Miller is just, at this point, I think he's too veteran enough to be submitted by a twister unless something terribly goes wrong. But I will say that about Jim Miller. That defense was very on point. His submission defense and especially was very on point today. But yeah, it just wasn't enough because Chase Hooper was always on his back. He was always in a half guard, side guard, in the truck position, whatever it's called. He was always in a more advantaged position over Jim Miller. And by the time the second round came about, Jim Miller was already kind of done. Like, he was already gassing out, mouth breathing wide open, face red as a tomato. It was pretty much kind of already cooked for Jim Miller by second round hitting. So good win for Chase Hooper. Gave him a 90 because he mainly dominated but didn't get a finish or have any like really noteworthy moments. So gave him a nice little 90 for him. Still a good prospect. I'll show you the top 25 in a second, but Chase Hooper is still good. Sean Woodson. Now, I gave him a 65 here because of the fact that, I think he still would have lost this fight versus Dan Ige overall. I had it 1-1 going into the third round, and obviously it was a bullshit stoppage, a terrible stoppage. But even with that, I still think Dan Ige would have won. So I don't think he gets a passing grade for having a bullshit stoppage. But that stoppage was bullshit. It was a horrible stoppage. Yeah, was Sean Woodson hurt? Yeah, was Sean Woodson almost out of there? But he's getting back up. He's still fighting back. He's still moving, trying to defend himself. It was a way, way, way too early stoppage, and it was complete bullshit. But I do think Stan Ige still would have won. I don't know how you're Sean Woodson and you have like this much height on Dan Ige and this much reach on Dan Ige, and you just can't outclass him. I don't understand fighters like that who have a significant reach advantage or just overall size advantage, and they just can't utilize it at all. So Sean Woodson always kind of scared me with that because I watched him versus Fernando Padilla. He looked gassed after the first round. I watched him versus Luis Saldana. He got KO'd pretty much and got lucky. I've never been a huge Sean Woodson believer. I've never been a huge guy, or I've never been super high on Sean Woodson. However, him getting KO'd and getting finished was bullshit, but I do think he still would have lost versus Dan Ige. It was still a close fight. I had it 1-1 going into the third round, but Dan Ige would have won just by him hurting. Even if Sean Woodson survived, I don't think he would have had enough in the tank to eventually hurt Dan Ige. Dan Ige is so like unhurtable. His chin is like one of the best in the UFC in my opinion, just secretly. You just don't know about it too much because it doesn't get tested too much. But yeah, Sean Woodson loses, and that was pretty much all the prospects from the card. But now what we'll do here is we'll hide these real quick and pull up our nice good old top 25. Now these is the big boy list. This is the top 25 prospects that we have so far from the past like 6 months, maybe less than that, honestly. I don't remember exactly how long it's been since I started this. But with Gene Silva gone now, that now means that Sam Patterson takes the #1 spot as the best prospect in the UFC. Now, real quick, I'll mention this. The blue numbers on the very far left, all that means that they fought on this most recent card. So any fighter from UFC 314 is a prospect who has entered the top 25 will be highlighted with their number blue. But yeah, good old Sam Patterson. I still feel kind of weird having him at #1 right now because I didn't count his lightweight fight against Yanel Ashmuz, but his welterweight fights have been amazing, and he has been looking like a legitimate great prospect as welterweight right now. But this overall is our nice good old top 25 list. Chase Hooper falls on #10 now. He drops one overall point, which puts him from I think 8 to 10. And Marco Tulio falls at #12 now. Actually, I kind of messed it up. I didn't actually put in the new Marco Tulio number, which that puts him 91. So that would put him at above Chase Hooper. Yeah, so I have him twice on this list. I fucked it up. Sorry about that, guys. Quick cut. I messed it up, but I had Marco Tulio on the top 25 twice, but he's actually #9. Chase Hooper 10. And then that means that Myron Santos and Quay Fernandez now come into the top 25 since we had Gene Silva and RDR drop out. Didn't do that well. I just kind of missed it. But yeah, there we go. Basically, from UFC 314, we get a nice 2 top 10 prospects coming into the scene. I mentioned maybe that's probably all it really is, man. If you want to look at this, pause it, look at it, analyze it, tell me where I fucked up, tell me if I'm stupid, dumb, whatever. But yeah, it's now becoming a lot harder to get into the top 25 now because you need to have an 84 overall grade at least to get into this. So that pretty much means if you have like one more bad fight, then you're probably cooked. Now, I am kind of hoping that some of these guys like Jacoby Smith, Jose Delgado, Austin Vanderford kind of find their way to end up, coming back to light, because I don't think that Vanderford is a true, #5 overall prospect right now. I don't think Jose Delgado is a #4 prospect right now. Kevin Vallejos, different story. I like him a lot. We'll see what he does in the future. But I don't feel like some of these guys in the top 5 have truly earned it. They've just had one really good debut performance. So we'll see what happens in the future with them. That's kind of the one flaw of my prospect report. But overall, yeah, I don't I don't know. But we'll move on away from our nice good old prospect report, and we'll get to our last takeaway of the day, which is the Yair Rodriguez versus Patricio Pitbull fight. Now, in my prediction video, or live stream, I thought that Pitbull was a little bit, this is too late for him in his career to be coming to the UFC. If this was earlier, then maybe I could see him doing pretty well. But I think now at his age, him coming into the UFC now is a little bit too late for him, which when he fought Yair, it kind of showed that. I'm not still convinced with Yair. I think still after his Brian Ortega loss, I'm still not like, this guy is an elite featherweight right now. Obviously, he's very good and his kicks are amazing, but that's really about it. I think his boxing is very mid. I think his grappling defense is horrid. I wouldn't say it's horrid, but I do think it's very questionable at times. So I'm not fully, invested into Yair title run starts now sort of vibe that he had after this Pitbull fight. But he clearly won. Like, he was outlanding Pitbull the entire fight. In the third round, he dropped him. He has literally the worst finishing potential of all time. Whenever Yair drops somebody, I am convinced he will not finish them. It's just like he has to put him out cold, like how he did against TKZ. Otherwise, does not finish him. So easy win for Yair. I wouldn't say easy, but pretty clear win for Yair. Pitbull, a bit too old. What do you do now with them too? I don't know. I think you give Pitbull somebody who is like, and they like, back end of the top 15 maybe next. I don't know if you can do that, honestly. You might give him somebody unranked, to be real with you. RDR had to fight somebody who was unranked in his UFC debut. I think Pitbull should do as well, but maybe there's some negotiating thing happening there. I don't really care about it. Yair, obviously, what's next for him? Clearly Diego Lopez. If you didn't watch my press conference video, or if you just missed out on the press conference in general, obviously there's beef there. I think Lopez versus Yair is 100% the next fight to make in Guadalajara. It needs to happen. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the whole card, man. That's your whole, like, what, top 6 takeaways, kind of. Basically, it's more than that because the report is like 6 takes and 1 when I mention it. But yeah, that's it. Like, subscribe, block off notifications, but I'll see y'all later. Peace.